and welcome to Soccer 101. My name is Daryl Grove, and sitting across the table from me is a man who knows all the moves.
All the moves.
His name is Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Hello. I appreciate that intro. It is wildly inaccurate.
You know more moves than me, or you can successfully execute more moves than me. Let's put it that way. Because today we're talking what I want a better term, but I'm going to call them skill moves.
Sure.
4 different skill moves that we're going to tell you all about.
That's what I have it listed as in my document. Skill move terms.
Am I like too EA Sports FIFA influenced here?
Probably.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just tough because like moves doesn't quite pull it off.
Dancing.
Yeah, and like skill moves maybe implies that there's a name to it. It has a little bit of a history, a little bit of branding to it.
The moves are the Rabona.
Heard of it.
The Trivela.
Know of it.
The Elastico.
Like it.
And the Sombrero.
Confused by it.
That's good. Good intro. Good intro. You want to get straight to it?
Let's do it.
With the Rabona.
Let's do it. Okay. So we're going to try to do a kind of explanation of what it is, how to do it. Yeah. Maybe some famous players that do it, and maybe a little bit of the history behind it, and maybe reasons why you shouldn't pull it off unless you're prepared.
If I've one thing I've learned from doing the Total Soccer Show for 10 years, people weirdly love etymology. Like,
they do.
People would be interested in why the Rabona
Our listeners
is
are pedantic? No.
I mean, I think we are, so we attract like attracts like.
Yeah.
Right? But first of all, if you've never heard of it before, what's a Rabona? It's almost funny, right?
First of all, I've heard it's a skill move, so there's that.
Yeah.
It is essentially kicking a ball by moving your dominant foot behind your plant foot to strike the ball on the outside of your plant foot with your dominant foot's laces.
That is a very accurate description.
I try.
Who have we seen do this?
Many people. The one, weirdly, Neymar comes to mind, although I don't think I can remember a specific time he's done it. I just kind of assume he has, and I assume it was an inopportune time. Yes.
I bet Neymar could be the answer for all of these.
Yeah.
I remember Eric Lamela doing it.
He sure did for Spurs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Eric Lamela would be one. Angel Di Maria had a famous one for Real Madrid where he used it as an assist, as a cross. And then Cristiano Ronaldo has also pulled it off several different times.
All right. So why is it called the Rabona?
This is where it gets a little murky. This is one of those where it's like there's an explanation more so than some of the other ones as an explanation, but it still feels like, well, this happened and then this and then this and then that might have been that and that could have been this.
A lot of these are weird, right? I think they're they're not dictionary definition terms. They're sort of colloquial terms that a lot of soccer fans come to use.
Yep.
I found it quite hard to pinpoint the origin of a lot of these terms.
Yes.
But they definitely exist because we say the word and everybody knows what it means.
We do. Yeah. So for this one, I think we're looking at an origin around 1948.
Right.
The story would be that it was a match between Estudiantes and Rosario Central in Argentina. Estudiantes player Ricardo Infante scored from 35 yards out using the move. Argentine football magazine El Gráfico put an image of the kick on their front cover. The headline of that image was El Infante que se hizo la Rabona, which is like literally translates to like the child plays hooky, something like that.
I've heard this explanation, yeah.
And it's based on a like popular expression or a well-known expression in Argentina, hacerse la Rabona, which means to skip school without your parents' permission. So the idea here, I guess, was that Infante skipped using his weaker foot by using his dominant foot.
So that's the sort of... There's always a weird thing that explains it that doesn't really make logical sense, but is just what happened. It may be about the translation. Something is lost in the translation, right?
And when I first saw that,
playing hooky.
He plays hooky.
From his weaker foot.
Exactly. But I thought it meant that like the shape that he like hooked the ball with it or something like that. That's what I thought they were going with.
There's a temptation to be very literal.
Yes.
Right? I remember when I first met my wife, there was a very long... me trying to explain Cockney rhyming slang and her insisting that there must be some literal reason why like dog and bone means phone beyond it just rhyming.
Is it?
You know what I'm saying?
Okay. We're getting into trouble here, but I'm going to go for it anyway. Is it essentially just code? Like, do you just have to know the corresponding rhyme, and that's all it is?
That's it, yeah. It just rhymes. That's it. Literally, it rhymes, and it's like a local thing.
So slang is the wrong term, though. That's the difference, right? I guess it is a word that's meant to represent something else, which I guess is the definition of slang, or roughly the definition. But it still feels like it's Cockney rhyming code, basically.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, you should be able to figure it out within the context, right? I mean... take a walk up the apples and pears. Like, you should figure out that means stairs.
It's when they drop the first part, though. That's like the one that always... comes first to mind, sadly, is from Green Street Hooligans, where he says, like, bees and honey for money, or you could just say, like, give me the bees. Like, I'm supposed... That's where it's sort of
That's where it gets hard, is when they take off the actual part that rhymes.
Bees and comb, honeycomb. Give me the comb? You need a brush? Like, what do you need? I'm confused.
That's fine, Elijah Wood.
Yes.
Don't worry about it. So anyway, there's no literal connection between hooky and the shape of the foot or anything like that. It's more just that expression. I'm sort of asking you to verify this.
Yes.
It's more just that expression of... doing something you're not supposed to do, really.
Yeah. Right. That would be the explanation offered by El Gráfico / historians.
I mean, El Gráfico is a famous publication, right? I will take their Spanish word for it.
All right.
Here's the thing. Why would you do this? Why not just use your stronger foot?
It is
because I've done Rabonas in games and it always feels awkward and wrong, and I always think I should have just used my proper foot.
I mean, you can do that. You can definitely do it for show. I equate it with have you ever had to, when playing pool, shoot with the cue behind your back?
Only once or twice because you're in a weird position.
You're in a weird position. That's what I would say. That's the equivalent for me of when you do it at a game, is when you know that cross is on. Say if I am dribbling towards the end line on the left-hand side, I myself am right-footed. I know that Daryl is waiting at the back post, but I've got to loft it over a defender. I might back myself because you're kind of scooping the ball and hitting with your laces and you're getting that big chip behind it.
You always end up getting underneath it, right? Yeah. It's kind of the only way to hit a Rabona is to get underneath it.
And so, I mean, I guess you could hit Lamella's was a little bit driven, but that's kind of the outlier. Yeah, generally you're getting that lift behind it, and maybe if you don't back yourself to be able to get the kind of lift given the acute angle you're running at and the non-dominant foot, maybe you go with a Rabona there.
Is there an element of disguise to it as well? It should just come as a surprise to the person who's defending you that you did this, right?
Yeah.
So if you do it fast enough, especially. Maybe when I do it, it's a little slow and a Rabona's coming.
Here it comes, yes. And you can do it if you wanted to. One of my favorite things to do is to then... I can't really pull this off. The one time I did, I had to do the whole it was no big deal. I totally meant to do that, and I do it all the time. It's not a big deal at all. I'm not freaking out inside. Is the fake Rabona into a nutmeg, when you go with the Rabona, but then you actually, instead of chipping it, you just pass it forward, through the defender's legs.
You have to untangle your own legs to go and run around.
Yeah, but by then the defender's so confused that it comes off, or doesn't routinely.
Okay, here's the big question, and I'm already picturing a certain player when I say this. What are the downsides of attempting a Rabona? What happens when it goes wrong?
As with all of these, looking like a fool. Because if you are kind of chasing the ball down and you're trying to do it while running, you could trip over your own legs and fall. The ball could keep moving, and it's not like you can really adjust that back leg. You're it's a sense memory thing of I know where the ball is. I'm going to kind of go not dominant foot, get it with the laces. But if that ball keeps rolling, decent chance you whiff, and then you fall over and your legs are tangled and you look stupid.
Have you seen the David Dunn video?
Yes,
I showed you the day at least, but I'm sure you saw it before anyway, right? So David Dunn, who was a kind of creative English player, playing for Birmingham City, I believe, tried this mid-game. As you said, the ball was rolling, so it's kind of hard. He ended up, instead of planting his plant foot and using the other foot to go behind and kicking the ball, he planted his plant foot, used the other leg, and his foot kicked out his plant foot.
Yes.
So he just kicked himself over.
Yeah, don't do that.
He tripped himself trying the Rabona.
I don't think I did it doing a Rabona, but I know one time I cut my own ankle trying to do a move once because I nailed it with my own cleat. Yeah, that's even more embarrassing because now you're in pain and you also messed up the move.
I would also argue, apart from the embarrassment of a David Dunn moment where it can look really bad, don't you lose some accuracy with a Rabona anyway? Isn't it more accurate to cross normally? Once you're doing the Rabona, I think you lose some of the targeting, and you lose a lot of the... You lose any of the curve, the spin, in swing, out swing.
I mean, I wouldn't say it's about precision. I would say it's more about if you know that kind of semi-lofted ball to the back post is there, and you don't want to have to cut back to then chip it in, and you don't want to use your left foot, which makes sense to me. I can somewhat use my left foot, but not well enough to be able to deftly weight a chipped ball. Rabonas can be easier, I think. So that's where it makes sense if it's in kind of the fluid moment of the game. I think when they look very dumb is when they're misused. When they're done unnecessarily, or if you have a bunch of people standing in the box waiting for a cross and then you do it, it's not quite as time sensitive at that point.
Should we move on to another move then?
We should. I should just add though, doing a Rabona into a diving header is a very pretty combination, and that's when it works the best. Yeah.
So Rabona plus diving header is 2 thumbs up from Taylor Rockwell.
Indeed. Also gets a thumbs up for me, even though I don't always love it, is the Trivela.
The Trivela, spelled Trivela.
Yep.
I recently learned. I was spelling it Trivela, which I think also might be the weird off-brand of stevia that I use.
That might could be.
I might have got confused there, but Trivela. What is a Trivela?
It's basically when you strike the ball, the way I have it defined as either for a cross, a long-range pass, or a shot, can be one of those three, using the outside of your foot to create a very unique, almost biting spin on the ball.
Yeah, so it's basically hitting the ball with the outside of your foot, but not just a simple close pass, right? It's when you really put some swerve on it by using the outside of your foot.
Yes.
Right?
It's
that's a Trivela.
It's like reminds me of like a very fancy golf shot almost. If you imagine that like you're trying to like bend it around a defender but into the path of the on-rushing teammate, and you hit it with that sort of curve that it spins around the defender but still gets into the path of the attacker.
Yeah, it might be one of my favourite passes. It's a Trivela pass that goes one way but bends back the other and avoids all the defenders on the way and lands in the path of an attacker. Is a beautiful thing to look at. Who is most famous for doing Trivelas?
I mean, there's only one. Ricky Q.
Ricardo
Carvalho. Oh, Carvalho. Wow.
No. He's more of a tackler.
I'm shamed. I'm shamed now. Yes.
I'm guessing we're not
different Portuguese person. Yeah, no, we're not. Ricardo Quaresma, Ricky Q. And I would say he uses it all the time, but in a lot of different ways. He basically uses it for the three things I've said. Sometimes it'll be the long-range pass. He always like pulls it off once a game or once every other game. You might not always know because it might just be a pass. And you're like, oh, wait, hold on. That had some weird spin. Was that it? But then you'll see the highlight reel, either Trivela cross that nobody saw coming, somebody gets on the end of and gets like the diving header, or you see the kind of shot from distance that bends in top corner and you never saw coming.
I would argue as well, when you're facing it, it's just a weird thing to face, right? Because instead of swinging out like most crosses from the right would have, because Quaresma uses the outside of his foot, it swings in. And suddenly as a defender, you're not used to that. The ball doing that from that side,
right.
It's a whole new thing you have to deal with. That's what makes it challenging. And then there's just the fact that he's so good at it. He's not just doing it to do it, he's doing it with really high level of accuracy. So there's the weirdness of it, and then it's really accurate. Suddenly that defender's in trouble, even if he's Ricardo Carvalho.
Yeah, exactly. That's obviously what I was alluding to.
This is in Portugal national team practice 2010.
That sounds right. And I think like in terms of why you should do it, jumping ahead a little bit, I would say that like it is a different ball. It ends up being a different ball than if you played it with your opposite foot. So for purposes of this conversation, if I'm in like center midfield, Daryl's making a run down the right wing, and I hit it with the outside of the foot of my right foot, it, as I said, like bends around, but it has the bite on it. Whereas a left-footed pass,
like an instep left-footed,
it's harder to get the like. That amount
vicious,
of cut,
right?
But that's the other thing is because you're hitting it outside of the foot, but you're hitting it almost laces and outside of the foot at the same time. So you still get the velocity of like a laces-driven ball, but with the spin because you're hitting it outside of the foot.
That's it. It's velocity plus spin equals viciousnness.
Yep.
Okay, here's the tough one, I think.
Also Jordan Morris, by the way.
Yeah, well, this is another thing. There are players who use a lot of Trivelas essentially because they can only use one foot.
There's that.
I would argue that's not quite as effective. Oh, Quaresma is kind of one-footed as well, right?
He is. He can use the other foot, though.
Yeah.
And I think...
I guess Morris can use the other foot.
But also, Quaresma is in such... a lot of these moves have lots of people who've used them. Maybe only two have like specific people that I think come immediately to mind.
Yeah.
I mean, this is Quaresma. He is head and shoulders above everyone when it comes to Trivela. Yeah. And the reason for that is because he does it so well that you rarely see him like toe it into the upper stands or something like that. So I think that's why for him I'm a bit more forgiving.
So the tough question is, why is it called a Trivela? There's not a good answer to this.
I think we've answered this in the past, and I think then the story that we were able to find was that it was like 3 sails, and it has to do with something with that, or it was like a trowel. I also saw it proposed that it means like 3 toes, and that you're only hitting with the outside of 3 toes.
Tree obviously means 3, so that could be the 3 toes thing. And if you do hit a ball with the outside of your foot, you really are using 3 toes, right? You're not using your big toe and... What's the one next to it called? The equivalent of your index finger, but for your toe.
That one. That's the title of it. That's what you call it. Yeah. I mean, but I couldn't really find anything to back that up. I couldn't feel like a linguistic translation of vela meaning toes. It usually means sails.
Does vela mean sails?
I think so.
Yeah.
In Italian?
Maybe? Or Portuguese, I want to say?
I think
Spanish?
It tries to translate to Portuguese when you put it into Google Translate, but I asked my friends who speak Portuguese, both Brazilian and continental Portuguese. Neither was it.
No?
They were basically able to say like, oh, it's that outside of the foot thing. But they couldn't really say much more than that as to the origin of the word.
But no one quite knows why, right? Yeah.
Until we get the long scholarly answer from someone about the origin of Trivela.
I was really hoping we could provide it on the show, but it just isn't. It isn't out there. It's one of those things that is just known as a Trivela.
Yeah.
And there it is. I would take the 3 meaning 3 toes and vela meaning sails because the ball does kind of sail.
Okay.
So I would take the explanation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what it is.
Yeah. Only Ricardo Quaresma knows.
That still feels very reachy in terms of a concrete explanation.
All right, finally, why wouldn't you do this?
Because it's easy to mess up. If you don't hit it right, the ball goes straight and you don't put any spin behind it. And if you're trying to do that sort of bending through ball, if you just hit a laces ball, you're going to put it out for a goal kick and you're going to look foolish and you're going to get that like, was he aiming for a pass? Was she aiming for a shot? I don't quite know what happened there. So I think that's one reason. And then the other one, as we've kind of already alluded to, is that it opens you up for criticism. That if you're always doing a Trivela instead of using your other foot, suddenly it starts to be, is it a proclivity or is it a drawback in their game?
I see. Is it
proclivity or vulnerability?
Is it a feature or a bug?
There we go.
Yeah. I'm going to say charisma feature, Morris bug.
Yep.
One thing that's full of features and no bugs
there we are.
Is today's sponsor, Postmates. So Postmates is if you need a sandwich in the middle of the day and you can't leave your office. If you need spaghetti late at night. I'm just picking through things.
You are. Here's my question, though. Yeah. Given that, the copy has, for example, a breakfast burrito at 8 a.m., we know Christian Polanco likes to eat that corn on the cob style, harmonica style.
You want a harmonica or burrito in the morning?
Say you want sushi at 9 p.m., but you want to eat it like Christian Polanco. How does Christian Polanco eat sushi?
I don't think he does. I think he'd be scared of sushi.
Oh, but if we're going with weird ways that he could eat, I'm going to say he eats it like half at a time, not like half a bite, but eats it top down.
He eats piece of rice by piece of rice.
With a knife and fork.
He nibbles at each piece of rice. Well, with a knife and fork. Yeah. Okay, he slices off each piece of rice.
Yes, exactly. All right.
And then he throws away the middle.
So in his Postmates additional notes, he can include that he needs silverware to make sure he's able to eat it that way.
Yeah, please bring a knife and fork and a ruler so I can measure each thing. So whatever you need to get, Postmate it. Postmates will deliver it. It's your personal food delivery, grocery delivery, whatever kind of delivery service all year round, even if you want a harmonica or a burrito.
They're the largest on-demand network in the United States. They offer delivery from all the restaurants, grocery, and convenience stores, traditional retailers you could possibly want or need.
So when you open up the app, if you just basically type in your favorite restaurant, you'll find that Postmates is connected to them, and they'll be able to deliver from that restaurant to your door. You won't have to leave your house, for example, or your office if you have a bunch of podcasts to record.
What we need them to do, and I'm slightly terrified they may have already done, I think the recurring theme in all of our shows is that I'm slowly concerned about the takeover of the machines. I want them to have the algorithm that I just vaguely describe the thing that I'm somewhat in the mood for, and it's like, oh, you mean this? But then I'm nervous that it will learn, and I don't like that.
I kind of want comfort food, and you want it to be mashed potatoes.
Exactly.
So you download the app for iOS or Android for free, and you can browse all the local restaurants, businesses, and then you can track your delivery in real time.
Beautiful. For a limited time, Postmates is giving our listeners $100, 100 smackaroos, if you will, of free
delivery. That's the new currency, right?
It is. I'm sure there's a crypto somewhere called that. $100 of free delivery credit for your first 7 days to start your free deliveries. Download the app and use the code SOCCER.
Easy to remember. That's the code SOCCER for $100 of free delivery credit. And to be very clear, that's for the delivery portion, not the food charge portion, for your first 7 days when you download the Postmates app.
Anything you need, anytime you need it, Postmate it. Download Postmates and save with the code SOCCER.
Speaking of soccer, we have 2 more skill moves to get to.
You did a lot of legwork to get us there.
I got us there, though. Third up, just like a Postmates delivery person would.
True.
Third up is my favourite one, the Elastico.
All right.
I think it's the hardest one. I think it's my favourite one to watch.
It is the hardest one. Similar to when I used to when I was first doing squats, and I was like, look how much I can squat, and the person who knew what they were doing was like, you're going maybe 10% of the way down as much as you're supposed to. Similarly, the Elastico, it's easy to think you've got, but in terms of doing it totally perfectly, it is real hard. Because
what is it?
You're basically pushing the ball in one direction. I think specifically you're supposed to do it with the outside and then the inside of your foot, but I'm inclined to think it can be either one. But basically, you're moving the ball in one direction, in this case with the outside of your foot, before quickly cutting back in the opposite direction with the inside of your foot.
With the same foot.
With the same foot, and I would argue to do it really perfectly, it almost needs to look like the foot never stopped touching the ball, as if you outside of the foot kind of almost roll your ankle around and then get it with the inside and take it at the same time, which I would argue is why it's called the Elastico, because basically to do it perfectly, it almost looks like your ankle is made of elastic.
I think it's the etymology of this doesn't need a deep explanation. I think it's really obvious that it's something about the elasticity of what's going on.
Of course. Right? Yeah. And what's going on is that Ronaldinho is the best of these.
And I'll say it also looks like when you pull an elastic band, a rubber band, it's elastic because you pull it one way, but then it comes back the other way. I think it's as simple as that.
Yeah,
right.
That makes sense.
Stretch in one direction, come back the other. It murders defenders.
It really does.
Because if you're going with the outside of your foot, there has to be, usually there's a whole thing to cut back the other way. So defenders will, defend that side that you're going. But if you're in one motion going one way then the other way, the change of direction is too fast for a defender to adapt to. So normally you send them away, open a bit of space, then you can cut inside. That's why the Elastico works.
Because even if the defender only slightly bites on it, they've still committed like weight and like body positioning in one direction. And even if they're able to kind of come back from that, chances are if you've pulled the move off properly, you've still created a little bit of space. Maybe then you go for the Rabona on top, and it's double tricks. But yeah, and then at in the best case scenario, the defender completely bites on the touch on the outside, goes all in for it, and then the quick little move back, and now you've kind of got an open lane potentially to go in on goal.
Yeah.
Tobin Heath did this at least once this past World Cup to great effect.
Oh dear. Okay, Tobin Heath does it. I'd say the other most famous is
Dino.
Yeah, he did this semi-regularly for Barcelona and Brazil, and I'm going to say he's the best at it.
I would agree, and I think he is one. Like there was a couple players when we were previewing the Women's World Cup that we were like, they remind me of Ronaldinho, and it's these sort of like. Ronaldinho always seemed to be dancing at any given moment. He seemed like he was always maybe salsaing a little bit, or sambaing, I should say. And I say that only to say that factors into my memory of him doing that move of he's already got that
hips moving,
shoulders moving in one direction, kind of swaying. The Elastico goes with it and just really lends itself to that bit of trickery.
It's the smoothness of it as well, right? That's what makes this move so hard, is to do it smoothly. You do the outside then inside, and it's so fluid and beautiful when it happens.
Yes. When it first happened, if we want to go a little bit of the historical route for a moment.
Okay.
Maybe.
I'm going to say Ronaldinho 2006 on YouTube.
That's it. That's what it was. He put it on YouTube.
He launched YouTube, basically.
Yeah. It's been popular, especially in Brazil, since the 1970s. Roberto Rivellino made it famous, specifically in the 1970 final versus Italy. He pulls it off. That's quite the stage to do it.
I didn't know that.
But he...
A World Cup final Elastico.
Yes, sir. And he made it very famous. He kind of gets credit with most publicly pulling it off. He says he learned it from his former futsal teammate because it's a popular futsal move, Sergio Achigo.
The ball's smaller, so you can get your foot around it faster. Sorry, I spoke over the name.
No, it's all good. Sergio Achigo, and he is credited with the invention, or at least the kind of first use that brought it to Rivellino, who then popularized it from there.
Why isn't it called the Achigo or the Rivellino?
Because Elastico is maybe just easier.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, and it's really good, right?
Yes. The gods of soccer don't like that it's not called the Rivellino, though. Maybe we should do that. Or the Achigo.
With some thunder in the background.
Yep.
We'll be okay.
I forgot that the mics never pick that up when I start talking about the weather.
Yeah, people would just think you're crazy.
That's fair. Got to keep them on their toes, Daryl. Got to keep them on their toes.
So here's a really obvious question. Why wouldn't you try an Elastico?
Because you fall. Because you sprain your ankle. Because you look foolish. It is really difficult to pull off. And the other thing that is very important, if you're a teenager who wants to go out and pull it off, that's great. But similar to how you and I, with the team we coach, do not let people warm up, quote unquote, by standing at the top of the 18, backing up, and then kicking a dead ball into the goal. That's not really a game situation. Yeah. The other thing that I have definitely had happen is I've practiced doing it and been able to pull it off standing.
The Elastico?
Dribbling is a way different animal. And
because the ball's moving.
Yeah. And so if you are used to being able to do it standing, then you can do it standing. But if you're then dribbling at somebody and you try to do it, you're adding another component in there that complicates things a bit further.
Isn't it hard enough even to practice it standing and get it? It's such a tough move. It takes so much ankle movement and so much quick change of direction.
Yep.
I just cannot do it. And I've tried not really hard, but reasonably hard to try and do this.
Of the four, I do think it's the hardest to pull off of the four moves we're going to talk about.
I can do the other three.
Yes.
That way.
Yeah, go. That makes sense. But I would also say it's the easiest to look dumb doing. Like the Rabona, you might trip, but I feel like the worst case is you're kind of going to miskick the ball.
Yeah.
With the Elastico, you can easily trip over the ball, fall over, you dribble straight into an opponent, you concede a foul, you do something dumb.
Or one way or another, you're losing the ball because if you push it one way, but then you're sending yourself the other way, if the ball doesn't come with you, you're just some dummy running away from the ball.
Yep.
Who formerly had possession.
Don't be a dummy.
That's the big downside of the Elastico, right? You can just be going the wrong way. You're supposed to do that to the defender, but if you forget the ball, you've gone the wrong way.
It's a different type of move.
It is. Anything else on the Elastico before we move to our final skill move?
Nope, I think that's about it.
Okay, final move. I take my hat off to the Sombrero.
Boo. I boo that. But I said in the beginning that this is the one that kind of confuses me.
Sombrero?
Yes, and there's a reason for that, because although it should be the easiest, maybe I'm just like a bit of a stickler for what a sombrero actually is.
Okay, so what do you think a sombrero actually is?
Because I think of it as something closer to the rainbow. The idea of like you have to like catch the ball between your feet and sort of you bring it like behind your back and over the top of your head and over an opponent. You run around, you catch it on the other side.
Like as the Ardiles does in Escape to Victory.
I was going to ask you if you knew why the English call it the Ardiles flick. That's why. But yeah, it's basically, to me, it's lifting or flicking the ball over an opponent's head while you simultaneously run around or past them.
Yeah.
And I always think about it like going over your back to do that. That said, this past week we saw Raul Ruiz for Seattle. That like MLS posted, he pulls off the sombrero and then he gets the goal, and I found myself reeling from that.
So you disagree that it's like anything where you put the ball over an opponent's head?
I don't know. See, I guess that's what I mean. Is like I don't know if I just know that that's how I've always understood it.
Yeah.
But it might be one of those things where like I was pretty confident that written out the name Phoebe for my entire life was Phoebe. Didn't know that it was Phoebe. Didn't realize that because you never see that like written out and said at the same time. So I also don't know
How did you think Phoebe from Friends spelled her name?
Like Feebee. I don't know, man. I don't know these things. I saw Phoebe written in a book once and was like, oh, Phoebe. And I think I just always thought it was Phoebe.
I mean, I don't want to get into a big debate about it, honestly, so I'm not sure there's any winner to it. But I think anything where it goes over the opponent's head is a sombrero.
That's fair.
But I think that the reason I think that is because we call that other thing the rainbow, or in England, the Ardiles flick, because that has other names. To me, then sombreros are more all-encompassing, lifting it over someone's head term. Fine. So if you'd indulge me for a second, what are the other ways of lifting it over someone's head?
I mean, so you mean aside from just sort of like
apart from the rainbow flick, yeah.
Oh, apart from the rainbow flick, I mean, literally just like if the ball is bouncing and I like just tap it over your like ankle locked with the laces, put it over the top of your head and run around you, then it's kind of made the hat shape as well. And
here's what I think: it's actually harder than you think because it's easy to lift it over someone's head technically, but the trick is to only lift it just above the person's head, right? Because if you go too high, then the ball's just wild and out of control. It's got to be sort of measured. You've almost got to like measure the person and be like, all right, 6'1", all right, this ball's going 6'2", just in case they jump a little bit. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it does have to be.
You have to be a good tailor.
You have to be a good tailor, so you can do it. To lift the ball over someone's head. I've also seen it done from a standing start, just like ball is like dead, and I think JJ Okocha maybe just scoop the ball over someone's head, and then off they go the other side. That's even harder, right? Because when you're not in motion, I love watching him embarrass people. Essentially,
Augustine. Yes. So I guess I take your point then. Maybe just putting it over the opponent's head is credit enough, because it's also worth noting that then you're having to track the trajectory of the ball while running around another human.
Yep.
Because that's the other component here that can sometimes be a challenge.
And you've got to look out for other humans wearing the same colour shirt as the guy that you just lifted it over.
You do.
So the obvious question, why is it called a sombrero? Or the obvious answer?
I mean, because basically, when it goes like over your head, it makes the kind of outline of the sombrero. You could have gone with, I guess, a 10-gallon hat if you wanted to. Sombrero sounds better.
Texas is called the 10-gallon.
Yes.
Clint Dempsey calls it the 10-gallon.
He does.
He probably doesn't.
He probably does not.
I would argue it's weirdly not that effective unless you're on the move. Because it's slow. I feel like even the Ardiles flick, I can do that, the rainbow. It kind of slows momentum a little bit, unless you're really fast and smooth with it.
I mean, unless the defender is static, like Rui Diaz, if you're going to consider that a sombrero, like he does it very effectively. This is the way to get around that defender, more so over that defender, because their positioning is such that they're not going to be able to kind of turn and react to it, whereas I'm running at full speed. I think it works there.
Yeah.
I also think of it weirdly as like a Mortal Kombat fatality to some extent. That like you see it happen. Like, not a lot of the time, but a decent percentage of the time you see it used in a game, it's being used by somebody to be like, it's 3-0, and now I'm doing this.
I think of Neymar.
Yep.
Because I think of Neymar as someone who looks to show off and embarrass an opponent, and not necessarily when it's a good idea. But I've seen Neymar do this, and it's very much I'm Neymar, I can do this kind of move. Yeah.
Yes, one of the most famous instances, though, that I can think of, or that I could think of when I wrote it down, because I have it in front of me, does involve a Brazilian, but it's a Brazilian defending. Ooh. It's Roberto Carlos. He gets sombreroed by İlhan Mansız of Turkey. Mansız is, as you would guess it to be spelled, except the I has no dot. But yeah, he does it in the 2002 World Cup, and for it, Roberto Carlos, I believe, gets a yellow, or at the very least just fouls him, because he's not letting that happen. That's
a very Brazilian thing, right?
Yes.
I will not be embarrassed.
Yes.
I will take you out instead.
It's such a weird, like, I will embarrass you and I will do many things, but how dare you attempt to do that to me? And then, Alzio Ardiles, you can find that little clip of him in Escape to Victory.
Yeah.
He does, like, the full rainbow sombrero over a German guard.
Oh, we should put some examples
Or
of this.
Nazi officer. I forget what they were playing against.
Definitely German.
I guess both.
Yeah.
Either way, if it's somebody guarding a camp, it's probably a Nazi officer.
It was Germans during World War II, so I'm going to
Yes.
say Nazis.
That makes sense.
Fair?
Yes.
We had
No. It was what I'm saying is I don't know if it was like SS Nazi or if it was like a normal like soldier Nazi. That's what I'm saying.
Does it make a difference?
Kind of, I think it does.
You'd rather do it to the SS.
If they have a skull on their hat, they definitely deserve a sombrero and then some.
They deserve idealists to flick the ball over
Yes.
them. Okay, I've done this and it's gone wrong. I've done this in a game and essentially doing
Kick somebody in the face.
doing the idealist thing.
Yeah.
And the thing that I got wrong was not putting enough force behind it.
Yep.
And you end up just flicking it up behind you
Yep.
and then running off again without the ball.
Yes.
Yeah.
Have you seen like, the jet skis that shoot the water in the air behind it? That's
Yeah.
what it looks like when you do it the wrong
is.
way.
But you've seen this happen many times.
I've done it many times, yes.
I've pulled it off in pickup games and it is a glorious feeling.
Yes, it really is. And it's another one where you have to act like, yeah, it's no big deal.
Yeah,
while you're silently like, oh my God, I did it.
I did actually get invited to play for a team after doing it in pickup.
That's
Like,
how
I
it
got
works, my
picked up
friend.
by that team.
God, they would no disrespect, they would have been so disappointed. They're like, we got this great flair player, and you come in and like, I'm a center back. That was an outlier.
They played me midfield. I played like deep line midfield the whole season. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that's a lesson for people out there. Just do one of these in like a trial. You'll get an invitation to play.
If it comes on the 10% chance it comes off,
Yep.
you'll get the contract.
Go for it. It's the Hail Mary move if you don't think it's going well.
It is. We should rename it the Hail Mary.
We should.
Okay, so there's your explanations for Rabona, Trivela, Elastico, Sombrero. You got anything else to add, Taylor, on any of these?
Yeah, I think it was first done by a Brazilian in 1968.
What was?
Alexandre de Carvalho Caneco, for short, of Santos was the first one to do the sombrero, I think in the rainbow format.
The rainbow format.
Yes.
That's a very nice way of
Also,
saying
the lambretta, apparently, is what it's called.
it. The Lambretta.
I have no idea.
That's interesting.
Yes.
All right. Give me
I'll
that
leave it
player's
at
name
that.
one more time.
You can know Caneco with a K. Kaneco is his Brazilian name. Mm-hmm.
All right. So this has been Soccer 101.
Yep.
I hope you enjoyed it. Please share it. Please subscribe to us via Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen. Please give us a review. Please let people know about Soccer 101 because when it comes out, it's going to be a brand new show. We want to get the word out as much as possible.
I also want people to send us video of them trying these moves. Via Twitter, via Instagram, via email, whatever you
Yes.
want to go with. I want footage of people... Some people who like maybe pulling them off very smoothly, that's fine. But
Yeah.
I also want some George Qureshi-esque like kook slams of people trying to pull off a Rabona and tripping themselves.
Rabona Cook sounds would be glorious. It would have to be by the water, right?
That has to exist. Now I'm going to go spend my time trying to find that.
So if you are going to send it to us via Twitter, it's worth reminding people that we're not always Soccer 101. Mm-mm. Soccer 101 is a Total Soccer Show production.
Yes, it is.
We are the Total Soccer Show. That is our long-running, 10 years at time of recording, podcast that's much more the news of the day, the latest game. We give analysis and all that sort of stuff. So if you're looking for a daily soccer show, 5 days a week, the Total Soccer Show is the one we hope you will listen to. And on Twitter, we are at Total Soccer Show.
All of those things you said were correct.
They are. I'm going to close out the show by saying I've been Daryl Grove.
I've been Taylor Rockwell.
You've been listening to Soccer 101. Thank you for listening.